Here are the most amazing facts about living in Hong Kong. Number 9. Numbers you need to know. We all know that the number 13 is considered an unlucky number pretty much everywhere in the Western world. Certain hotels omit the 13th floor or number 13 rooms. If you're planning a holiday to Hong Kong, don't be surprised if you find your hotel not having a floor containing the number 4. The word 4 sounds very similar to the word death in Chinese. Chinese culture is filled with superstition, and this is one number that they don't mess with whatsoever. It's considered such an unlucky number that a casino in Las Vegas had to rename its casino almost as soon as its name was changed. The link on the strip used to be called the Quad from 2012 to 2014, and it alienated superstitious Asian gamblers, forcing Caesars Entertainment to do a quick rebranding after only having renamed the property in 2012. Come on, all the marketing department for Caesars had to do was just ask one person that grew up in Asia whether a name such as the Quad would have been okay or not. On the other hand, the numbers 0, 6, 8, and 9 are considered to have very auspicious meanings because those numbers in Chinese sound similar to words that have positive meanings. The number 8 is probably the luckiest number out there, and there are a ton of associations with 8. Number 8. Diverse landscape. Hong Kong is extremely diverse in many ways, but geographically speaking, it's as diverse as any city out there. When someone thinks of Hong Kong, they probably immediately think of concrete jungles, super dense areas, and skyscrapers. All that is definitely true. With around 300 skyscrapers, Hong Kong has the most skyscrapers in the world, more than double that of its closest rival, New York City. It also has the most high-rise buildings in the world, with 8,000 buildings having more than 14 floors, which is almost double that of New York City again. However, it should be noted that overall, the vast majority of Hong Kong, approximately 3/4 of Hong Kong to be more specific, is actually greenery that's mostly uninhabited. Hong Kong contains 24 country parks, reservoirs, and scenic hills. Lantau Island, for example, famous for housing the bronze Buddha statue, the Tiantan, is the biggest island in Hong Kong. The island contains a population of only roughly 45,000 residents, compared with 1.4 million people crammed onto Hong Kong Island. Number 7. Helpers all over. There are an estimated 320,000 domestic workers referred to as helpers living in Hong Kong. These helpers are basically live-in housekeepers and nannies who are mostly from the Philippines and Indonesia. Each Sunday, helpers congregate and use the day as an opportunity to go to church, socialize, and generally enjoy life by pretty much taking over much of the public areas around Hong Kong. They'll congregate and make what's best described as cardboard fortresses where they socialize among themselves. Domestic helpers typically live with their employers, but a small minority of them live in dorm-style housing with other helpers. Most helpers work long hours, and there are reports of helpers who work up to 18 hours per day. The low pay and long hours is considered by some to be human rights abuse. Domestic helpers are generally paid around 4,300 Hong Kong dollar per month, which is around $550 US. Helpers are expected to carry out tasks such as washing dishes, cleaning clothes, serving food, washing the car, and just about any sort of a household task you can imagine. Invariably, each dollar they save is sent back to their countries, where the money goes much further than it does in Hong Kong. Number 6. Half mile of machine. Nowadays, whenever you visit a large metropolitan city, it's certainly not unusual to see people get around touring the city on segways. In Hong Kong, it's just way too dense to get around the touristy areas on a Segway. Luckily, there's the central mid-levels escalator and walkway system, which is the longest outdoor covered escalator system in the world. It was constructed in 1993 to provide a better commute for locals by linking areas within the central and western district on Hong Kong Island. It costs around $30 million to build, and it took around 3 years to complete. The daily traffic on the escalator exceeds 85,000 people, although it was originally estimated that only around 27,000 people would use it. With the escalator now a tourist destination, it's no wonder why the daily traffic was underestimated. The escalator covers over a ridiculous half a mile in distance and elevates over 443 feet from top to bottom. At roughly a half mile from beginning to end, this is definitely extremely helpful for those who have trouble with the steep hills of Hong Kong. Hong Kong Island is dominated by uneven hilly terrain, so it makes sense to have an easy form of public transport, unusual as it is. Number 5. Hong Kong's typhoon season. Hong Kong is renowned for its legion of typhoons, not to be confused with tycoons. Though if you were, you wouldn't be wrong either. But as far as the typhoons are concerned, which are mature tropical cyclones, they're present in Hong Kong from as early as May through as late as November for a 6-month typhoon season. From July to September, the peak typhoon months, locals live with at least a 50% chance of a storm hitting them. The best weather in Hong Kong really occurs between December and March, where the weather is mild and not so hot, but then again, it just depends on preference. Nowadays, risk of injury or death during a typhoon are low thanks to technological advances, although this hasn't always been the case, of course. Back in 1971, for example, there were at least 110 fatalities reported and almost 300 people injured during the typhoon season. There are 4 typhoon warnings that exist in Hong Kong. A T1 warning means that a typhoon has been spotted within 800 kilometers of Hong Kong, meaning the storm is still a day or two away, and the likelihood that the storm will change its path and avoid Hong Kong altogether is still relatively high. A T3 warning means that winds of 110 kilometers are expected, which means it's a good idea to ensure that things on a balcony are either tied down or brought inside. A T8 warning is when shit is getting really serious. Everyone is told to stay home as severe winds of 180 kilometers are expected. Most, if not all, flights will be delayed or canceled. A T10 warning is as serious as it gets. This is when the eye of the storm is expected to hit directly. The last T10 storm in Hong Kong was 2012, and the one before that was 1999. Number 4. Expect visitors. Beating New York, London, and every other city on Earth, Hong Kong wins by a sizable margin for the most visited city in the world. 26.7 million tourists allegedly visited the territory in 2016, and during the same year, coming in at second place, 18.7 million people visited Bangkok in Thailand. Hong Kong has been voted the best business city in the world and best business city in Northeast Asia for 4 and 5 consecutive years in the annual Readers' Poll organized by Business Traveler Asia Pacific magazine. Hong Kong remains a city that is almost a never-ending list of things to do for lone travelers and families alike. It's a place that's extremely favorable for tourists. Murder is almost unheard of, as Hong Kong is consistently on the list of lowest murder rates in the world. Crime dropped to a 36-year low in 2015. Hong Kong is also home to some of the best beaches and enormous national parks. As far as man-made parks go, we definitely can't forget about Disneyland in Hong Kong. As for other forms of entertainment, Hong Kong is almost everything else you can imagine of doing in a big city. Number 3. Real estate prices. After Singapore, Hong Kong comes in as the second most expensive city to live in the world. At a staggering average of 25,355 Hong Kong dollars, or roughly 3,300 US dollars per month for rent, Hong Kong isn't exactly one of the most affordable places to live in the world. To buy a place in Hong Kong, you're looking at an astronomical average cost of around 25,000 US dollars a square meter. Of course, prices are going to fluctuate wildly from area to area, but I'm still going to give out some rough averages here. And I'm not just talking about the housing cost that's high enough to drain some life savings. The average price for a new parking space in Hong Kong Island is roughly 180,000 US dollars. In 2017, a parking spot was sold for a staggering 664,000 US dollars and some change. However, as far as food goes, you don't have to give up an arm and a leg to eat at some great spots. Hong Kong is renowned for housing one of the cheapest Michelin-starred restaurants in the world, the Dim Sum restaurant in Tim Ho Wan. There are plenty of local restaurants that cater to both locals and tourists at great prices if you're willing to get used to places with a, let's just call it, local atmosphere. Number 2. Cramped conditions in Hong Kong. In certain parts of Hong Kong, given the ridiculous population density, so-called coffin cubicles exist, and more than 100,000 people are cooped up in such places. A lot of the less fortunate live in tiny, cluttered single rooms with space that's not much wider than their torsos. Such rooms also serve as their kitchens, living rooms, bedrooms, and bathrooms, all miraculously squashed into a tiny space. As Hong Kong is one of the most densely populated places in the world, this fact is almost hardly surprising. According to a study in 2014, there were 57,250 people per square kilometer in Kwantong, the most densely populated district of Kowloon. This is where the number of poor people living in any given district is highest in Hong Kong, at roughly 125,000 people. Kwantong was, however, something of an improvement from the now defunct Kowloon Walled City, which was a largely ungoverned settlement in Kowloon. It was originally a military fort, which over time became populated by at least 33,000 residents within borders of just 6.4 acres. That works out to around a ridiculous 3.25 million people per square mile. Consequently, it was given the title of being the most densely populated place on Earth. As a result of an increase in crime, gambling, and prostitution within the district, it was eventually demolished in 1994 when both Britain and China refused to accept responsibility for the increasingly worsening conditions. Today, with a population of almost 7.5 million, Hong Kong is the current fourth most densely populated place on Earth. Number 1. British influence. After 156 years of colonial British rule, it's no wonder that English is still an official language in Hong Kong and is still taught at all schools. Yes, to all you guys out there who can only speak English, don't worry about the language barrier when you visit. Hong Kong was officially handed back over to China beginning on the 1st of July in 1997. Since the transfer of sovereignty, Hong Kong has undergone something of a minor identity crisis. There are those who still yearn for the days of British rule, as the influence of British and Western culture was once an indispensable aspect of life. Many physical details remain unchanged, however, as there are, to this day, a plethora of British street names across cities of Hong Kong. Hong Kong has streets named Wellington Street and a road named Prince Edward Road, for example. And this isn't exclusive to streets. Victoria Harbour, which is located between Kowloon and Hong Kong Island, is named after, well, if you don't know it, you should probably Google it. Also located in Edinburgh Place in central Hong Kong Island is the Queen's Pier. I'm sure you get the picture. Hong Kong remains a fascinating place with a culture unlike any other in the world, where Asian culture is intermixed with an obvious Western influence. Here's what's next.
This Brazilian city has lots to offer tourists. Beautiful beaches with beautiful people. Christ the Redeemer. Tijuca National Park. Oh, and don't forget the 2016 Summer Olympics. However, crime rates are also very high. In August, the Telegraph reported that crime in the city was